The year was 1977, and I was 14 years old. I used to live with my mom and dad in a house. I have a sister, but at the time, she was studying in the capital. We lived in a city called Colares in Brazil. My dad used to work as a construction worker in the city, and he also had a corn farm away from there. The city was small, had a little more than 1,000 people. We used to go to the school every morning. The school was inside the church. I would go out and play with my friends in the afternoon. We would still be playing until night. There were other small villages around, and the kids from these villages would join us too. It all started mid-August. Me and 5 of my friends were walking in a region we called the beach. The beach was a place near the river, somewhat far away from the city, surrounded by woods. We used to go there sometimes. We would start a fire and sit around it to tell each other stories. We had some dogs with us that day. All of a sudden we started to smell something strange. It was like this weird chemical smell. The dogs then started to bark in the direction of the woods. We all looked at the tree line, trying to see something. Me and one of my friends stood up, and we got 2 big sticks we would leave around the place for emergencies. The dogs got more and more agitated. We then see some movement in the woods. The dogs ran in the direction of the movement, and before we could do anything, they disappeared in the darkness. We tried following them, but they were too fast, and their barks would get more and more distant. This noises then stopped. We keep running. We eventually find the dogs, all dead. They all had that chemical smell, and one of them had this weird transparent goo in his mouth. They also didn't have any injuries. I remember that I cried a lot that night. One of the dogs was mine, and I really loved it. Couple weeks later, everything was normal. I was at my house, sleeping. I woke up in the middle of the night. I heard 2 or 3 cars accelerating through the road in front of my house. I found it a bit weird, but thought nothing more of it. I went to sleep again. In the morning, I got ready for school. As soon as I opened the door, 2 of my friends were waiting for me. They started telling me what happened during the night. Apparently one of the villages got attacked by some sort of light. I didn't believe them at first. However, when we went by the only clinic in town, there were more people than usual in front of it. One girl was sitting in front of the clinic, crying. We knew that girl, she would sometimes play with us, and she was from another village. We quickly went to her, and asked what happened. She then told us a story that gave me goosebumps. Apparently everything was okay until 11 p.m. The people of her house were at the living room talking. Suddenly, they hear some commotion outside. As they went to see, there were some people, pointing at the skies. So they looked up as well. She said they could see some weird lights in the sky. They were almost round, and would illuminate some of the clouds near it. She got scared by it, and decided to go back home. As she was getting back, a huge flash of light illuminated the village. She ran inside and hid, meanwhile listening to people screaming outside. The flashes would continue, and a buzz sound would fill the air. Then it finally stopped. She heard her dad coming inside with her mom, both in pain. After that, some of the people from the village went around, to check on everyone. Her mom and dad were vomiting in the living room when the people came. They got everyone inside a car, and took them to the hospital. That story scared me and my friends. We all got to school later. All of our friends looked weird as well. A quick question and they told us they knew about it too. We had classes with the priest as normal, and later, we went home. After lunch, me and my friends decided to go around a bit. You could see a change in the atmosphere of the town. People were scared about what happened. We then went to the beach again, me and my friends. And as we used to do, we stayed there until night. The moon was illuminating the sky, and reflecting on the river. Then we heard a weird noise over in the distance. Suddenly, a big shadow covers the moon. When we looked up, we froze from fear. Right above us, there was this black thing. A huge dark ellipsoid, with some lights under it. It was big, and standing still above us. One of my friends screams, and we start running into the woods. We hid away in a sort of cave, unaware if the thing was really after us. We stood there for a while. After we decided it was safe, we went running into town again. As soon as we got next to it, we could hear something was wrong. We could hear screams in the distance. As we got to it, some people were crying and screaming in the streets. I quickly ran to my house. As I got there, my dad was going out of my house holding my mom. I immediately helped him carry my mother, who was crying in pain. We went to the hospital. When we got there, a lot more people were there too. The one medic was running around trying to calm people down. In the light of the hospital, I could talk to my dad about what happened. He said that they heard a noise outside, and stayed inside in fear. People could see the light in the sky again. When the flashes started, they were inside. Apparently, a flash came from a hole in the roof, and got to my mom. Where the flash hit her, there were 2 needle-like holes. The area where the flash hit had 2 black marks. As more people would come in, I would hear people around us talking about the injuries. Apparently the injuries were all almost the same. Even the people who got full-body exposure to the flashes, all they had was 2 needle-like holes, and some black marks. When it was finally dawn, my father gathered some friends and they went to the mayor's house. It was at this point, in the hospital, that I heard the name for the first time. They were calling these flashes the Chupa Chupa, because some people reported that the light was sucking blood from them. The days passed, and more places started reporting the incident. People would light big bonfires at the main square, in fear of the flashes. Then the military arrived. They set up camp near the town. I had seen guns before, but nothing quite like that. They had this big anti-air gun. It was installed in the middle of the base. This didn't stop the things from happening. Every day, more and more people were attacked. The feeling of helplessness finally forced a great deal of the town to move away. Me and my family went to a village, at around 40 kilometers from the city. We had a small farm there, where my dad used to grow corn. We thought we would be safe there. I had to quit school because of the whole deal. So my routine through the day was, I would help my dad during the day, and I would hang out with some kids from the neighborhood later. Things were pretty calm for a week. Until one day, when the lights came. I was at home with my parents, and we had to hide from the flashes under a big table in the kitchen. Some of the other families weren't so lucky, and got hit by them. My dad took it upon himself to take some people to Colares hospital. The next day, he didn't came home. I tended to the farm as usual, waiting for him to come back. Later, I got on my bicycle and went to hang around with the other kids. We went pretty far from town. When it was almost dark, we were already gone back, and I saw my dad's car going back through the road. He didn't stop, as he probably didn't see us. The thing is, all of the kids would go home, and I would have to ride another 12 minutes until I got home. It was dark already, and I was alone about halfway home. Then, I saw the lights in the sky, and the flashes started. This time, as I was riding my bicycle and didn't have a single space to hide from the flashes. As soon as the first flash hit me, I fell to the ground, paralyzed. I couldn't move nor scream, and I felt the pain of the flashes scorching my skin. When the light stopped, I got up. 2 holes were open near my neck, and I had black marks all over me. I went home, stumbling from the pain. That was about the last straw for my father. He got me in the car and went to the hospital with me. There, at least 3 more people were waiting, all victims of the flashes. All the family had to stay in the church, while they waited for me to get treated. I spent the next day in the hospital, as I had more wounds from the bicycle fall. At that night, we heard strange noises while in the hospital. It all started with a weird buzz. I recognized it from that day at the beach, and started crying. Suddenly, another noise, a helicopter. It went by the city, really fast. A little later, there was a loud noise. I never heard an anti-air gun before, but from the noise, I knew it was that thing firing at something. Then, everything got quiet. We went back to the farm the next day. We could see, the remaining people of the town were all on edge for what happened the other day. At this point, it was at the end of February. Like a week later, the military went back to the capital. For some time in the next months, we would still see the lights, but the flashes that used to hurt us were gone. The town went back to normal then. So, I grew up in this town, and in 1989 my dad passed away. I then went to live alone in the corn farm, in the small house we had there. The house wasn't big, but it had everything I needed. I used to tend to the crops during the day, and made a chicken coop. One night, I was almost asleep. Suddenly the dogs started barking outside. I had these big dogs for protection. I stood up from my bed, got my gun and went to check outside. I could hear something moving in the cornfield. As I got outside, I started to smell something weird. A chemical smell. I stood outside in the front door, looking at the movement in the cornfield. Something then blocks the light of the moon. I look up, I see the same black shape I had seen years ago. When I look back down again, I could see a thing. A small humanoid figure, thin, was about 1.5 meters tall. It had a brownish pale skin, a big head, big bulgy black eyes. When I looked at it, I was hit by a strong headache. I twisted myself, and managed to get inside my house and close the door. I was so scared I even ended up pissing myself. I then sat at the corner of the living room, gun pointed at the door. The dogs kept barking outside. I saw shadows passing in front of the window, but I refused to look at them. I stood there, until I could see the light of the moon again, and the smell disappeared. I got up, ran to my car and drove all the way to my sister's house, at the capital. I went back there to get my stuff, but I would never live near that region again. A friend of mine is still there. He says that from time to time, he can still see the lights in the sky. Hello, did you like the story? What if I told you that this story is based on a real interview with an old man, exclusive for this channel? The whole incident he talks about is actually documented as an ufological case. And there are details on the military operation he talks about. I have left links in the description about it and invite you to take a look. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to PewDiePie.